Okay, let's get started on part two, or maybe I should rename it The Real Cowboy. So I've got this one that I did before, and like I said, it has flaws to it, but you can see the jump in value between the lightest lights, which are just barely there. This value 2, there's value 3, 4, and then a black would be 5. And what the purpose of this was really to get you to think in terms of not just the value, but the shapes, to begin to see some of the face abstractly. See, like this little shape right down here, which isn't quite accurate, but to see these as abstract shapes to help you get around the stereotypical thing that's in all our brains that's incorrect. And the more time you spend working abstractly, the better you get at seeing what's really there. Okay, so I have my starter piece here, and I have new gamboge, and I got out this time, instead of using the coral, which is a little bit bright, and this guy does not have bright skin. Yeah. So I'm using rose, which is less bright. It's a little duller color, and it's a staining color. A lot of the time I'll put down a layer of yellow first, but I'm not going to do that this time. We're going to just go ahead and mix kind of a peachy skin tone. So we've got our yellow out here, and I've got it pretty thin down, and I'm going to put a little bit of rose into it. Well, that's still pretty yellowish, right? So we need a little more rose. That's still pretty yellow. Okay, let's put a little more in. Oh, that seems to be getting close. Let's look at that, see what that looks like. Oh, can you see that? That's pretty good. It's a tiny bit on the yellowish side, and since I would normally put yellow down first anyway, having it just a little bit yellowish is nice, because we do want some variation of color between layers. Otherwise, it just gets looking, well, like this. This pops because it has those value jumps, but we would like to have more interesting color. Okay, so let's just put a layer of that down, and I'm working on dry paper. I want to be sure and keep this really light. And I don't care if I get outside the lines, because this is so pale, it's not going to have too much influence on these other areas that are pretty dark. Except, of course, now I'm going to have to dry it before I work on anything else. Let's see. So, okay, like that. And then let's do the hands. Now this is still very wet, and so what I'm laying down here is going down very, very juicy, even though I'm just putting a little of it down. I want to, this brings to mind, this brings to mind something that I need to point out, because I've had people that have learned to work wet enough, but were being very, very cautious. And because they were being so cautious, they maybe didn't put enough pressure down on the paper. So they were getting some dry brush effect like that. Does that show? I hope that shows. They were getting some dry brush effects because even though they were working juicy, they were just working so carefully light with so little paint that they were getting this dry brush, which winds up making this texture of the paper come through really strong. And it took me years before I caught on that some people were doing that. So now I watch for it, and sure enough, it happens pretty often. So when you're new to this especially, or maybe you're not so new, but you just got really careful, and things like this can happen to you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and dry this. Okay, so I guess I'll do one more step on the face before I start on the clothing. So what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and add some more red into this. I don't want him to start looking too pink. It just wouldn't be masculine enough, I guess. Let's see what this is going to look like. Let's just paint it on top of that. Well, it's still not very strong. Yeah, I think that'll be pretty good. It really needs to be a little more concentrated. What I'm doing there is I'm putting a lot of a lot more liquid down to make it dark enough. So probably what I need to do is I need to deepen the whole thing. So here's a little new gamboge too. A little more rose. I think that'll probably work. Yeah, see, that'll look like it. That looks like this, but there's less juice there. Actually, I should keep some color there because that'll be really good to test on later. You might want to do this on something else other than your painting, though, because, you know, you might want to hang him in your kitchen or put him on your refrigerator door or something. By the way, I'm going to leave the background up to you, too. And you might, again, you know, make something up, like a pasture with a fence, suggestion of it, or a saloon. Maybe, you know, the bar with a picture of a naked woman over, you know, back there or something. It's something to make him look like a cowboy, huh? Because I think really he's, I don't know where he is, but it's pretty nondescript, you know, blah. All right, so you can see, again, there are some places that are a little bit lighter. And actually his eyeballs are a little bit lighter too. But I don't want to keep them the lightest light. But I might leave a little highlight there where the nose is. And see, we've got a little highlight there on the cheek. Oh, so we have, remember, you have this posterization. And what I'm hoping that you'll do is, I'm hoping that you will keep referring to this and thinking about this, because this helps. And maybe you have painted one of these. Gosh, I hope you have. This will help keep you thinking about those abstract shapes in there. So again, we're going to work very wet. And we'll paint yeah. Oh, I was going to leave the eyeball a little lighter. Maybe not that light. We've got a little light spot on the cheek right there. Now this will work if you're working really wet. If you're not working wet enough, this will begin to dry on you, and you'll start working to smooth it all out. I'm really going to keep these edges crisp on here. There's a little area over here. that's lighter. And we might keep the eyeball lighter here. So I'm just not filling in the pupil because that takes long and I don't want to do that right here. Oh, what about this mustache? Because this mustache, well, it does have some redness into it where there's some skin showing through. Maybe I'll do something a little bit like this. And just go on up into his hair. All of this. Whoa. Maybe something about like that. If you want to, you can, if it makes it feel better to you, you can go back and put a little color in the pupil. Okay. So there, we got something like that. I'll tell you what, let's do. If I can do it quickly enough. I've got a little bit of gray here. Actually, I used it on the last one. Can just put this in wet. So you've just got a soft edge. Well, I'm getting a little bit of run back here. So what I do a water neutral brush and come in here and just touch and pull a little bit, and it should be fine. There. Oh yeah, I like that. Okay, so that's a beginning on some mustache color. See, we got a little area there that doesn't seem quite right. It's not a problem. Okay, down here on the hands. The hands really are in a lighter area, and I really would like to make them a little bit more compatible with the face, rather than having the face in more shadow. But we do have, I don't know what's showing up on the video, we do have some little highlights there on this thumb and right here. This area, I can't tell because of the optical illusion. I could leave that a little bit lighter, and that little spot right there on the nail a little bit lighter. So let's see, let's just paint around some of this. Again, this is soupy, nice soupy, juicy color. Because that way, as long as it's wet, I can alter it or work with it however I want to. I'm just going to fill that in. I could have, I could leave some light spots on the ring. There. And basically we're just filling this in. And again, I could probably just pull that color out into here, into some kind of shadow area. I'm not doing it because, again, you might want to make this something. Maybe it's the edge of a railing on a fence or something. Maybe he's near a corral. Just because he's got a cowboy hat on doesn't really make a cowboy out of him, you know. Oh dear. Okay, well, I got my white on here too small. We'll work with that later. So, okay, I'm good with this. So I'm going to dry it, and then we're going to put a beginning wash in the clothing. So I've been on YouTube more lately. since I got this iPad to do my recordings with, well, I do other things now with it too. I've been on YouTube more and saw a guy's video, and he was talking about that painting loosely does not mean that you have to paint fast or without thinking. I'm not sure he said the part about without thinking, but he painted fairly slowly. It still had a nice loose look. And he wasn't using just the end of his brush like that either, although that's a nice way to work. On something this size, I don't know that that's very practical. So I've got my already gray mixture. Some of you know this mixture well from the part 1 and part 2 of part 1. If that made sense. So confusing. I'll put a little bit more blue into this. So we've got a nice gray that's kind of bluish. Oh, that's perfect. You know, it could have come out a little differently than that, and I might have still said it was just perfect. It's just whatever you see it and you like it, then it's perfect, right? Okay, so basically we're just going to put in a kind of light bluish area here, blue-gray. See that spot right there looks extra blue here. I don't know what's going on with that. That's not necessarily what you want to do in your painting. You might want a little more of a blue shirt here, or you know, some emphasis with a little bit of color if you want, but I probably wouldn't make that the place that I would do it. His eyes are bluish. Yeah. Okay. So basically, we're just going to paint this whole thing in with this. Yeah. Okay, that's about right. And I just want to use whatever size brush works for me. And it could be, this is a 3/4 inch flat, or I could use, I've got a number 12 round here. What I've really recommended in the past, times gone by, that I don't even know where mine is right now, but is a number 10 round. It's a nice size for a lot of things like this. But if you feel better working with a point, and I know a lot of you are really bothered with the flat brush I use. There are times when I think you need the flat brush, but I don't think you always need the flat brush. So I think what I'm going to do right here, just to get me started off on the right foot, is that I really don't want this hard edge between the hat and the hair, which I can't really see where one stops and one starts. So this is a good place for the flat brush, because the flat brush is where it's easier to get my water neutral brush and pull it out and have a soft edge. And I might pull it out a second time just to make sure it's going to behave. There. I might do the same thing on this side too. See, there's hair here, and then there's shadow. And I just don't, sometimes I like to see colors, you know, just like in this picture, they're really merging together. So go ahead and let them merge on your paint too. Don't get into this division of this has got to be, the hat is gray, you know, the skin is skin, whatever, and have some hard division between them. That begins to set you up for a bad look. So see, I can use a round brush. A round brush does some different things. It can give you some really nice, more interesting concentrations of paint, sometimes without your planning it. and that can be a good thing. So, again, there's some shadow here on the face. I wonder, down here along the neck, you know, it's not like we want to really emphasize his neck. I sure don't want mine emphasized. I think maybe here I would go ahead and pull a little of that gray in here. We're really going to be using some blue on the skin, I think, rather than gray, but I could change my mind. Anyway, a little bit of that. That may look like a lot right now, but that's because this hasn't gotten darker. When this gets darker, let's see, this is in a lot of shadow over here. We'll just pull a little of that in. When we get darker color in here, this is going to appear as virtually nothing. But it will actually make a nice transition and make a more believable piece. As I tell one guy that, Ken, who always laughs at me when I say it, I say, just do it, trust me. And he laughs. Okay, that's starting to dry. I spent a little too much time twiddling around. But see that unevenness? First of all, it won't show up. But secondly, a little bit of that kind of unevenness helps give a piece a looser look. Don't necessarily, when something like that happens, don't necessarily feel like it's a big mistake. However, if I don't want it to happen, I'll take my water neutral brush and I'll soften an edge. We just add some extra water there to keep that moist while I work on this side. Actually, this is just easier to manage with a flat. I would never use a synthetic flat. Flat does not carry as much paint, and if you're using a synthetic flat, it's just so nothing. It's just awful. Now, I could have dried that and then come back and started it. Since I know that I'm just painting up to the line here, I'm not going to turn my photo to go with it. But I can get at this at a little better angle here. And even though, you know what, that's the back of a chair. But it could be a fence. You could make it a fence if you wanted. So, should we go ahead and make this brown down here? Or should we, I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's not make it jump really big. Because again, if his clothes are gray and the fence is brown, if it's too brown, it just makes this big division in a place where it's not important. But what we could do is we could take some burnt umber. I don't have mine pre-wet because I just now started thinking about this. I miss not having a test palette class. So I've got a little bit of that gray left, and I'm just going to put a bunch of burnt umber in it. This will actually look more like what's in the picture. Not that what's in the picture is what we want. We make what we want, don't we? But that almost looks like a raw umber at this point. I just decided that I would like to do this. Again, it'd be nice to work a little bit of that color into the bottoms of the fingers. I think I'm going to do that. I may just dry it and then do it. It'll be easier. I'll show you another way to go at this. Not that you wouldn't have figured it out yourself, but I'll show it anyway. I don't want to cover that up. I should have done that on a separate piece. Okay, I'm going to dry this, and then I'm going to come back and work the fingers a little bit. Oh, look at that. That's kind of spotty here. Okay, we'll fix that too. Wow, did that ever get botched up looking or what? But actually, I like this kind of thing. I would like to get more of that in some of my paintings. So here's the thing. Keep in mind that sometimes when you mess up, you'll actually see something you like. Don't, look for what the total effect is. Okay, that doesn't, well, it is weakening a little bit. It doesn't really want to go away. It's really not going to be a problem. It's going to be dark up in there. I could have been a little more careful with that. Okay, so here, the bottoms of the fingers are in shadow. And one of the things that we're looking to do is we want this to look natural. And so when you see something in shadow, it's going to be more like the thing that's under it. Maybe some of that is the color on this, the thing that's under it, bouncing up this way. Some of it is just because it's in a deeper shadow like this is. But let's see what we can do with this. We could actually, okay, let's go at it this way. Let's just wet the hands. We're just gonna, let's say we're gonna naturalize this. Okay, because this, this looks like something out of a coloring book right now. Of course, it's in the very beginning stages. So I just lightly wet that down, very lightly. And I've got my water neutral brush, and I'm actually pulling a little color up. So let's just take some of our whatever color. I would say chair color or fence color or whatever. Okay, let's just pull some kind of around the edges here. Again, you could think of this in terms of it's being a transition. It's helping make a transition between the hands and what's underneath them. I'm not really too concerned with defining the hands or the shadows on the hands right now, although I've done a little bit of that. See, up in here, the shadow is reddish, whereas down here, it's reddish, but it's also got hints of this. I guess I should fade that into this area down here, which should actually have a shadow from the hands. I'd want a hard edge shadow there, maybe. I don't know. Something like that. Let's just leave it like that for right now. This jacket, I could also bring this color up into the jacket if it were lighter, but it's going to be so dark that I just don't need to bother with doing that. But let's say if he had a cream colored jacket or just even a mid-tone jacket, I might pull some of the same color up in here, just like I did on the hands. We're going to do most of the shaping of the hands with reds and then a little bit of blue, but this is just a nice transition area. And see, it looks more natural that way. God, he doesn't look very natural there, does he? Bless his heart, he looks frightened. Kind of looks like he's ducking from something, doesn't he? Okay. Well, okay, let's stop here. Okay, so I was looking at him, and he just looked so much like a deer in the headlights that I went ahead and I put a little bit more tone in there on those eyeballs. I thought the eyeballs were stood out too much, and that gave him kind of a look. So let's see, we have got this mix here, which still has a lot of yellow in it. Let's go a little redder, so I'm just going to add a little bit more rose. You notice I put the rose over here first, and then I add a little bits of it, like that. Okay, so let's wash the brush out, because if I'm going to test with the brush, I'm not getting a true test if it's still loaded with paint that I've picked up over there. So, let's see. Well, I'd have to see it dry, but I think that's pushing it just a bit. I'm okay with the color because we're going to add blues in on top of this. This isn't a skin tone mix, but I would like it to be paler. Okay, more like that, I think. Okay, so now we're basically putting in these values. I'll call this the third value. Okay, right in around here. Oh, and we've got this mustache problem. Okay, so, well, actually, his mustache is actually kind of a warm color. It's not a cool, bluish gray. It's a warm gray. We could actually use this, which, like I said, this is looks about like a raw umber of some kind. Okay, let's have that handy. So the idea is to get to where you can see these shapes in this face. Okay, in which case, we should get this out. Remember this stuff? So rather than look at the posterization, I'm going to think posterization here. Let's see what I can ferret out here. I know that this area right in here, oops, I should have taped it down, but I didn't. Right here is lighter. There's an area right, I think it's shaped about like that. Now, if I compare it to my posterization, I might be in for a shock, but In fact, I am pretty sure just from memory, which my memory's not that good, but I'm pretty sure just from memory that this might not be so great. A big part of this is about seeing. All of that's darker, so this is even darker. Okay, I've made that confusing. Okay. Now, am I going to follow all this and remember it? No, because I don't even have it taped down here. But also, I don't really want these lines in my way. But you might do this, you know. Okay, let's do it this way as an illustration of a way that you can do this so that you can learn to see these shapes better. Okay, so I'm going to ignore this eye area up here. I'm going to keep this all solid through here, right where well, I can't take it off. All right. Let's see if I can go by this, sort of. And you probably already know that I get carried away and lose concentration. So what I'm going when I'm doing a demo, or just when I'm doing anything actually. So let's get this water neutral. I hope it'll stay that way long enough. And let's pick some of this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fade some of this out. I'm looking around this shape right here. And then I'm seeing this shape. Now, if that starts drying there, I'll have these awful outlines. So I can't just let that happen. So what I could do here, okay, let's say I'm getting tired. So what I could do is I can just come in with my brush and fade it out. That's enough area for one time. Fade out the edges. There. Like that. Now the thing is too, is we're not necessarily leaving hard edges all over this. I left some little hard edges before because I liked them. But I want to soften some of these edges because we're doing the real picture here. So I just barely soften them. They're pretty pale anyway. There. I'm good with that. So I'm going to dry this. If anything, I think that's a little bit pale. I'll try to use a little bit more color the next time. Where I faded it out in part also weakened it. So let's see. Okay, so we're coming along here. Okay, on along this way and through here. Yeah. Well, now that looks a whole lot darker. Whoops, I forgot about. Okay, I need to slow down. So this whole ear is going to go darker, and I'll just pull that up in the hair. This whole ear is going to go darker, and he's got some crow's feet. And we're just going to suggest them by having that ragged edge right here. And then it kind of comes down and across this way. Okay, that's enough. Let's soften our edges and step back. Drop back and dry. Well, let's see, I took a little too much. And you don't have to soften every edge. I think I'll leave those crisp, of course, where the crow's feet are. Okay, so that looks pretty good. This is darker than this. I wish I'd gotten that a little darker. That looks about right. This looks a little weak. You know what? It's still wet, I think. Let's just add a little more color in over on this side. And you know, he's not really just made of 5 values. He's got in between values. But if you concentrate on the 5, even though you're going to soften some of them and they're not going to stand out that much, he'll have a lot better look to him. Okay, so dry. You know, I really think some of y'all might want to own some of this stuff. And you don't have to get this brand, or all you need is, for that matter, if you're at home and you're going to do what I did and leave it laying there, you could just spread a little piece of saran wrap there and draw on it. Because when you're done, you want to be able to pull that up and look at him. Or this is better because I can flap it too. But you don't want to destroy your original photo. Okay. So I put this back on. Yeah, okay. Let's do another area. It's got a little highlight right there that I liked. Again, see, this is soupy wet, and so I can paint around an area like that without getting an outline because it's not going to dry right away. It's wet. I'll just pull this back over this way where this other shape was because I never got that dark enough to suit me. And I've only got one shape over here. Something like that. No, I don't generally paint by these, although sometimes I'll use one to analyze something. But it's a very good tool. I used to make posterizations 50 years ago. Whoop, forgot about that little shape there. So I got it a little lower than I wanted it. Okay, so I'm going to fade out here. Fade that edge. And I think I'm going to leave that little spot over the eye crisp. And I might leave part of this little spot crisp. It's gone smaller than I wanted it to be. Maybe just like that. Boy, you just barely have to touch them with this brush, these real light, fine little washes, and it's done. In fact, you can hardly even tell where there was an edge there at all. You know, I want a little bit of a break because I want that feel to it. Okay, see, he still looks like a very unhappy fellow. Hopefully when we get his mouth in, which is a little more set and rugged looking, he won't look like he's going to cry. I swear he looks like he's going to cry. Okay, dry it. Stop, drop, and dry. This video is going to run over 40 minutes. I'm trying to keep them below that, but I've been having better luck with the downloading here lately. So let's go. Okay. Let's go here. Darn it. See, there's things I can't tell. Yeah, they're supposed to... I should have stopped that at the crease. Right here. So I'm going to fade that out. I'm going to fade that out and dry it, because I want a crisp edge right there at the crease. And I'm good with a little bit of a crisp edge there on the lips too. Well, I went off and left the camera on, and because I don't know yet how to cut the film, cut the film, you know what I mean, and that I want to go ahead and get it up, and my tech people aren't here, so you just have to endure that bit of length. So the thing is, this area right here has got a little highlighted strip in it, but it's more like that, and this should come up behind the nose a little bit. That's partly just stuff that I know because I know it. So we're going to do this, and we're going to do a little bit of our gray, and we're going to let them merge together here. Oh, well, that's way too dark, though, as you well know. And remember, I really didn't want to do a bunch of shaping here. I'm kind of trying to follow the posterization with you, because that's how I'm teaching this, because I think that's there. I think there's so much benefit to you in seeing this, in thinking this way. So let's, I just want to merge those a little bit. Okay, oh, well, what did I do up here on the nose? Okay, let's do that. And then I think we need to soften this little spot, but I don't want to lose that little bit of highlight in there. So you notice when I drew these lines, I mean, that was arbitrary. There's a lot of soft areas in there that you could go either way with the line. You could say, oh, some of this is still light enough, or some of this is dark enough. Your line could follow a different area than mine. It tends to work out anyway. I think I want a little more something right there. Well, I can't seem to get it down. Here. Okay, I'll just leave that like that. That's not bad. All right. Now, his hands. I think you could follow what to do with his hands real easily, looking at this posterization. And what I would suggest, I would actually suggest doing the hands first, because they're a lot easier and you can warm up on them. So, we're doing this value, which actually still covers most of this hand, is the same value as this. Okay, this is our third value in. It's not the next to the darkest. So don't confuse those. Cover most of this hand, except maybe that finger and a little spot up here, and then up around here. And you can see those knuckles in the back of the hand. That's what those are right there. So do that. You might do that first to warm up, and then go to work on the face the way that I demonstrated here. Oh, and I did mention that you've got a long part in there listening to my dryer because I forgot to turn it off.